Hello everyone. Today we'll talk about a very interesting topic. Basically there are two topics that I just wanted to discuss. Interesting topics. First thing is that something related to this device, the Raspberry Pi. If you have already heard about it, or maybe you have already used it, if you have not, then this is something. It's a mini computer. We can say this is a credit card size computing device that has pretty much very basic stuff to actually perform as a computer. So it is very suitable for programming and maybe a little bit of kind of development work as well. It is not that massive. It doesn't have huge resources as such, but it is pretty much enough for a beginner or for a side project, or if you want to have this as a kind of your personal projects, then it is very much widely used all over the world, and this is very interesting device to have. So basically the technical specs is nothing but it actually comes with different RAM variants, 1 GB to 8 GB, and it has all the ports. So if you see here, this is a credit card sized computer. So it comes with the motherboard itself. So this is what it is. If you buy it, it will come as it is, but we can also buy a separate case for this, and we can make this a mini computer. We can attach this to a monitor, and then we can make it as a computer. So this is pretty interesting device and it is available around 5,000 to 7,000 range based on the variant that you choose, and pretty much good to have if you are into something that you like to make some projects, your DIY projects and stuff, right? So it has a processor. So the latest variant, Raspberry Pi 4, is the one that is currently in the latest, and it has good tech specs. Let's go to the tech specs. So here it basically has Wi-Fi. Yeah, basically it has RAM, Wi-Fi connections, Ethernet connections, USB 2.0, 3.0 and 2.0 ports, plus there are HDMI ports, mini HDMI, micro HDMI ports, and then you can also connect it to different ports to your monitor. It can also have a mini monitor or display port. Also we can have GPIO port as well. There are a lot of possibilities. This is a very interesting device. Why I am talking about it? Because I have one of the older versions, and I use it for my personal projects to play around, do some stuff. This is why I am talking about it. If you haven't explored it yet, and if you want to really explore what is this device is about, go to raspberrypi.com and check out these different use cases. Now talking about it, this is about this thing. So explore more about by going this link. And why am I talking about it? And in our use cases, right, in technology, we have a lot of use cases with such kind of devices. One of the use cases that I'm going to talk about today is another topic. I'm trying to use that topic and relate to that topic with this Raspberry Pi. Okay, so this is about the Raspberry Pi, and then we'll talk about it in a bit, how we can use this. Now the next topic I'm going to talk about, the main topic about today's, is that WireMock. There are a lot of the context is mocking, API mocking. So in software testing, we must have heard about mocking, right? So in development as well, we do use a lot of mocking. So whenever we have API services in our application, we also have a mocking, and we also use a lot of mocking services during development, during testing. So there are a lot of different utilities apart from WireMock. We have a lot of different tools that actually provide us mocking the APIs. I'm today talking about a very easy to use library and a very interesting way to actually use this mock in your personal projects, right? And this is nothing but WireMock. So WireMock has different ways to actually use it. WireMock now provides a cloud-based solution. You can sign up with your account and then have a cloud-based mocking service, or you can use their standalone service. So today I'm going to talk about the standalone service. This standalone service is nothing but you can use it and host it on your own local machine, or in your own AWS instance, or in your own Raspberry Pi, right? This is where Raspberry Pi comes into the picture. All right, so let's talk about WireMock and how we can actually use this WireMock, and then we'll actually see how we can use this WireMock and deploy that into Raspberry Pi. So here let me give you a little bit of a hint about what is this mock. Mocking is nothing but, if you are familiar with API, then you must have seen that if you general use cases is that you have a UI and there is a API talking to it, and then API returns some data, and then UI renders that it and shows this in your UI. What happens if you do not have a API service available yet? So developers are still working on it, or they don't have a portion of, maybe there are couple of endpoints already available, but few endpoints are not yet available. And what they can do is that they can make a mock API, mock responses. Whenever you hit that particular endpoint, then it will always give you a mocked data. It could be a static data, or it could be sometimes a dynamic data. It depends on how you configure, but it will always give you a response without building the actual service. So we are not going to test the service, but we are going to test the integration, meaning the UI. So there is a UI that actually shows some of the data, but that data should come from the mock UI, mock API. Okay, so in that case, mocking is very important. Here we can use a mocking services and let that mocking services return some dummy data to the front end, and then we can go ahead and test the front end. So in that case, such cases, WireMock, Mockito, or there are several other mocking libraries are available, so which can use it. Now in this today's session, that I just wanted to give a very interesting use case where I just wanted to build a mocked API that I can control on my own. I can make any number of endpoints. I can make any kind of responses. Okay, so all those kind of stuff, I can host it on my local, or I can host it on any remote server. Okay, so that is what the topic all about. Okay, so as you already see here, the WireMock in the website as well, I can see they are giving this on the overview section. They say that they support a lot of features. These are the features that they support: HTTP response stubbing, okay, and then URL pattern. You can we can actually do almost pretty much everything on the API. We can actually mimic the headers, responses, body. We can mimic status codes, right? So all these things we can do it. So via this WireMock. So how do we do it? There are a lot of ways to do it, basically. So before that, let's try to understand a little bit of how actually it works. This is what I was talking about. This is an application, and that application try to request some data. It's a get request or post request or whatever it could be, and generally they actually have they request it to the real server. So this is the API server that actually takes the request and gives the actual data to the client. But here what we are doing is that, let's say that this API server, this API endpoint is not yet developed, and developers are still working on it, and it's not yet available to test. But our application is ready, front end is ready to be tested. What should we do? So we can have a mock server. So whatever this server is going to reply or respond with data, we can simply mock all those behavior here with the mocking server, like using this WireMock, right? Whatever the response body, whatever the headers, whatever the status codes, everything can be mocked with using this WireMock. So once we have this server, then this application can talk to this mocked server instead of real server. So this mock server needs to be actually set up, and here the context is how are we going to set up this kind of mock server, right? This is what we are talking about. Now WireMock can be used as a very different ways. Here important things are, we can have a jar. WireMock actually provides us a standalone jar. If you see here, we can use let's say that here there are different options. We can use Docker as well. They have a Docker, so spin up the Docker and you can start the service, or we can use their jar file, right? So this is where it comes into the picture. So they have a jar file as well. So using this jar file, we can start the services, right? So anywhere, whatever the ways, or we can actually go ahead and sign up with their cloud account, and in the cloud account they provide a UI interface, and there we can create a mocking service, and it will be there in their cloud itself. Okay, so for my use case, I don't want to use the cloud because they have a limitation. They have a kind of 1,000 request. We can only make 1,000 requests per month, which is very less for me. So if I have something, I want to do some automation project, if I want to do some something, then 1,000 requests per month is pretty much less. So I didn't want to go for cloud account. Instead, I wanted to set up it on my own, right? So setting up in your own system, be it in your local system or be it in any EC2 instances, it's totally pretty much easy using this kind of standalone, or maybe you can use a Docker instance. Okay, so coming back here, today we will talk about the standalone jar file. It is pretty easy. Docker is also pretty much same. WireMock Cloud, I already talked about it. Okay, let's now go ahead and talk about how we can do this. So there is a documentation how to do this, as we already saw it here. This go to their WireMock website and see here running as a standalone service, and they have all the documentations available here. So first we need to actually download this jar file. The jar file is available here towards the end of this, I think here. Yeah, so this jar file you have to download it, and then once we download it, this is simply we have to make sure that our system has Java installed, and then we can simply run this. Okay, running this, there is two way. Okay, this is how to download and run it. Now once we download this, we need to, very important point is that we need to create mappings. Mapping in the sense, this server actually looks for your mocked responses or request, whatever you have to do it. In the cloud, it is pretty much easy. Once you sign up it, and then you can create your own endpoint, you want to create /user /book /booking, whatever it is, post endpoint, put endpoint. But here what we need to do is that we need to actually prepare that JSON on our own. Okay, so that is called mapping. So basically, whatever the endpoint you are going to hit it will go and try to map or match with whatever the JSON file that you have it, and if it matches, that it will return you the mocked responses. So for that we need to actually create that mapping. How do we create a mapping? We can create a mapping using admin API. Actually they provide a admin API. WireMock has a admin interface. We can go to that and we can do. Otherwise we can also write our own JSON structure. Okay, using admin API also pretty much easy, not that difficult. Or we can also, there is another easier way to do that, is nothing but downloading the template. So WireMock has lots of JSON templates. Let's first talk about this admin API, right? How do we do that? We'll talk about it, and then we'll also see about this template as well. Okay, coming there, how to run this. Okay, so as I already mentioned, I have already downloaded this jar, and once I have this jar, I will simply run them. How do I run it? Basically the better way to run it is that like this, we have to choose create mapping, or this mapping will come in a bit. Before I run it, I have to place this jar in a folder. Okay, let's call this as a WireMock. It can be anything, it ABC, whatever you want to give it, but for a meaningful name I would like to give a folder. So we have to create a directory or folder, whatever you call it. Let's say that WireMock. Inside it we have to place this jar file, and then we have to create another two different folders. One is called mappings, another is _double_ files. Okay, so why this mappings is nothing but inside this mappings we have to create our JSON file. Whatever the JSON file, we have to actually, we need that mocking responses, request and responses types. We have to keep that JSON file inside this mappings. Apart from that, let's say that you want to have a mock server. So any files in this files, you can have your simple static files like HTML files. If you want to actually serve HTML file, mock that HTML files as well, we can also place this inside files. So you can access that file from the mocked service, right? These are the two things that we have to do after we download the jar file. Once we have it, then we have to actually create this JSON. So this is a sample JSON. Actually, if you see this JSON, this is what I was talking about. This is the mapping. This file will be there inside mappings. So in this file, what we are going to specify is that WireMock has a format. How do we know all this stuff? If we go here in the same document, on the towards the left, stubbing. So in the stubbing section, they have given already to create a stubbing and all, you have to create a mapping. Okay, so this is a sample mapping file they have given already, the sample. So what does that mean is that in the request section, there is a method and there is a URL. So method is get, and URL is nothing but this /something. Okay, so this can be anything, API slash book or something. We'll give a meaningful name. And what do you want to actually return whenever someone hits this endpoint? What kind of response that you want to return? So here you can see this, I want to return 200, and in the body it will be simple hello world text, and headers should be anything. What can you do? That's it. So you can have this kind of mocked post request, get request, put request, whatever you want, you can have it. Okay, so let's go ahead and try to do that. And then yeah, so all this stuff we will do it, and then we'll talk about this admin API, how can we also do it. Okay, now the interesting part here is that all this I can do it on my local machine. But what is the problem with the local machine is that I just, for my use case, I have some personal project where I would always like to have a mocked API available. Okay, so in my local system, if I do this, I can run that mock service, but my local system will not be up and running always, not 24/7. It's not a server. So this, there is the next best option is to go for a kind of a cloud solutions like AWS. And in AWS, you have to use this kind of service if you want any service to be running 24/7. But as you all know, cloud service is free up to some hours, but after that they charge about it, right? So I have to, there is some kind of cost involved in the cloud services, right? But for my use case, I just don't want to pay anything. I have a Raspberry Pi with me since a long time, so I kind of do play around with it, different kinds of projects and kind of stuff. So what I thought to do is that I thought to leverage that with this kind of use cases. So in testing, we have a lot of use cases that we can leverage this kind of server. My Raspberry Pi is connected to my home network, home Wi-Fi. So it has an internet connection. It has a Linux operating system. Raspberry Pi actually has their own OS. Okay, so if we go here, they provide their own OS. If I go to this, there is a software, and in the software, if you see here, download for Mac and download for this. So they have their own Raspberry Pi desktop version. They have a lot of stuff. So in the Raspberry Pi, we can also use Ubuntu. We can also use any different distributions of Linux. They have their own Raspberry Pi OS, which is very optimized and pretty much easy to use. So I have used that one, and I have installed all the necessary softwares like Node.js, like Java, all those stuff I have already installed it. Okay, so one of the cases here is that because that is 24/7, so you can have this device running for 24/7. If it is attached to your power backup or something of sort, then it will always keep on running, and it is very low power consumption. It doesn't consume a lot of power because it doesn't need any monitor, doesn't need any USB cable, USB keyboard or nothing. Simply you can only for once you have to connect it to that USB cable or monitor, set it up and leave it. That's it. You don't have to touch it ever again once it is all set. So it is already done. It is connected to the power supply and to the Wi-Fi, so it is always available to access for me at my home. So I don't have to worry about my local system whether it is on or not. So I can also expose that to Raspberry Pi to the public. So outside my network also I can expose it if I want, right? So if anyone else wants to access those mocked API or services, I can also do that. Apart from this use case, I can also have some of the dummy static websites. So let's say that I want to do some automations and this kind of UI, some Node.js project I want to do. I want to build some React or Angular or maybe kind of any kind of HTML website and want to host it at my maybe my local network, or maybe I want to expose it to the public. I can do that as well. So in that case also, I always want that those websites or service available up and running 24/7, right? So for that use cases, I always have this Raspberry Pi running 24/7, right? So that doesn't impact, doesn't have any downtime kind of stuff. Okay, so I don't have to pay also. I don't have to pay anything extra, so it's on my control. That is few use cases. There could be a lot of use cases. If we take this Raspberry Pi, we can also use Docker. You can use Docker service as well. So have a Docker installed over there, and you can use that as a remote Docker service. And you can also use this for your own projects. So there are so many use cases, but these are few of them that I use it. So now let's go ahead and try to do this mocking exercise on the Raspberry Pi directly, right? So as I already mentioned, first thing is that we need jar file. Second thing is that we need to create a directory, and then inside that we have to create two more directories like mappings and files. So let me switch to the terminal. Here if you see this, I have already connected to my Raspberry Pi. If I exit this, how do I do it? This is my local terminal. Here on my local terminal, how do I connect it? I simply have to connect SSH and then my username @Raspberry Pi. It could be Raspberry Pi IP address. I generally don't worry about my IP address because the IP address might change, because I'm currently, the Raspberry Pi is currently connected to my local Wi-Fi, and local Wi-Fi always, it's a dynamic DHCP, right? So it may change the IP address sometime. So sometimes it restarts, sometimes after a week it will assign some different IP. So I don't have to always look for what is the IP and all. So Raspberry Pi can also be accessed with a static host name, that is nothing but Raspberry Pi dot local. So with this we don't have to worry about the IP address. Whatever the IP address is, until and unless your Raspberry Pi is connected to your local network, that is via Wi-Fi, then it will always work. So already it is working, and I just have to give my password. So it is connected. Now you can see I'm connected to the Raspberry Pi now console. So because it's up and running. Now with this, what I would like to do is that I would like to actually install the mock service and then do the stuff. How do I do that? I have already downloaded those jar files, so I'll simply go to WireMock. If I do here, if you see here, already the jar file is already downloaded. So I have already placed that inside a WireMock directory, and there is a mapping folder. Let's go to mapping. And inside mapping, I have already created a JSON file. Okay, so if I do a cat, this is the JSON file. If you see this is the same JSON file that we talked about. Okay, so request nothing but I just have to do a get request /API my test, and it will return me 200 and whatever the dummy response that it is. Okay, so if I come out of it, and then if I go to files, then there is a dummy test.html. If I do a cat, if you see, this is a test HTML page from Raspberry Pi. So very simple static HTML. I just wanted to show that how we can also access this kind of HTML files, right? So everything is all set. So you can do all of this in your own local system, in your Windows or Mac or Linux, wherever. This is very simple. It works pretty much same way, nothing much to do. Once this is done, what I would like to do is that I would like to run this jar now. Okay, once you have a mapping inside it, the file, your test mapping.json file, then there is only thing that you have to do is that you have to simply run this command, nothing but Java. So this command is also given in their website. So run on standalone. So this is the command that they have given. So we have to simply run this command. Let me copy this. Okay, so if I run this command, command not found. Okay, cool, could be, yeah, there is a mistake. Okay, so what I need to do is that I need to use sudo. Sorry, my bad, I am currently on a wrong location. So only currently you need to run this command where your jar is available, otherwise we have to give a path of it, right? So because currently my jar is available in the same directory, I can now run this jar. It takes few seconds and it will, yeah. So now with this our mock server is available, and if you can see here, port is 8080. Now on 8080 port, with this we can access the mock server. Now currently if you see it, I am currently actually accessing Raspberry Pi via SSH. Okay, so now the 8080 port is nothing but from the Raspberry Pi, not from my local machine. My local machine 8080 will not work because the service is running from the Raspberry Pi. So I have to access the Raspberry Pi 8080 port. How do I do that? I have another session here, so already. Okay, so this is another duplicate session but same Raspberry Pi. How do I do that? I can simply what I can do, as I already mentioned, when I connected, right, I just wanted to access this Raspberry Pi, then I just have to use Raspberry Pi .local. No IP address is needed. So if I try to access 8080 port from Raspberry Pi from my local machine, because as I already mentioned, Raspberry Pi is in my network, so I can easily access that same Raspberry Pi from my host. So I have a Postman, and in the Postman I can simply use like Raspberry Pi .local. Instead of IP address, I am using this host name because this host name is always static. Okay, then I can use 8080 port. So if you see here, it says forbidden, but it is working. Okay, 403 forbidden, but it is working. I can use it. Okay, now let's go to this their site here. What they say is that I can use. Okay, so there is a API. Let's go ahead and on this we also have admin API. Yeah, so on this you can see here admin API. What are the APIs available? We can see here. Okay, and full specification here. So if I go to here, then they have a good documentation, API documentation. Okay, so go to stub mapping. Okay, so there is a get call here. If we see this get call, it says that __admin mappings. If I do a get call with this mapping, they say that it will show you all the mappings. Okay, what is the mapping again? Remember, we had this JSON file that we actually created as a mapping, right? My test.json. This is nothing but a mapping. So it is going to show this. Okay, so I'll use this command _admin mappings. So I'll go to here. So I'll close it. I have already saved all those get mappings. If you see this, if I go ahead and do this, the request is nothing but Raspberry Pi .local 8080 and then _admin. Okay, then if I do this admin, and then it should be mapping. Okay, if you see here, I already see those requests. This is exactly same thing that we have given. No, I can already see it. So I'm accessing the Raspberry Pi's 8080 port, which is running the WireMock, and now it is the mapping. Mapping is nothing but it shows that what are the endpoints that you have configured. So it shows that API/my get my test and get. So let's go ahead and do that. So if I take, let me copy this. I just wanted to create a, instead of that, let me do a Raspberry Pi here / here. If you see this is the endpoint that I have mocked, right? This is the endpoint I have mocked, and it's a get request. So I have given a get request here. And what else? If I hit this, I'm going to get 200 as a response and a more content as a body. So let's go ahead and do that. There is, yeah, if you see, more content, right? And it's a text content. Now let's go ahead and do some changes. So if you see WireMock, it is also logging it. So any error that it will keep on logging it, right? Now this is running. Let me stop this server. Okay, now what would I do is that I would do some changes to this JSON. I will go to mappings, and then okay, so here what I would do is that I would do some changes here. Instead of this body, right, I will make it a JSON body. Okay, this is currently, if you see this in the Postman, it is just text, right? It's a text. If I go to header, the return response type is nothing but it would be a JSON text, actually not a JSON. So that's why we are getting a text, but I want actually JSON. So here JSON body, what I can do here is that in the JSON body I can have like this. Let me delete all this. It might be difficult here in the Linux to use this kind of stuff, but if you are using notepad or something, it would be pretty much easy. Maybe I want to have a message. In the message I want to have something like, this is coming from WireMock. Okay, very simple JSON, and I simply want to save this. Okay, and once I did the modification, what I would do is that I will simply go ahead and run that, restart that again. Okay, it's run. Then let's go ahead and hit the same thing. Maybe it is still running. Okay, let me try again. Yeah. Okay, it didn't work. JSON body message, this is coming from WireMock, but it is still coming as a text. Alright, so what I can do is that let's go to the documentation. If you see here in the documentation, create new stub, and here they have given all the documentation. You can actually go ahead and explore this document. Basically in the request I can have method, URL path, and then headers, everything we can give it. So in the header I can have it, if you see this, then the response status code I have given already, body, and this is the JSON body that I have given. So JSON body you have to give it, and then yeah, we can explore this. I mean, we can mock it as much as, so this is pretty much a comprehensive document. We can use this document to return anything, but my point was to show how the mocking works, right? So this is how the JSON mocking works, right? And then we can go ahead and change the accept the request type, accept application JSON, and then it will start working. Okay, so probably let me go ahead and do that. I have to stop it. I have to go to mappings, and then here what I would do is that I think let's skip this part. I mean, anyways, we have all this documented here, JSON body, and I think pretty much comprehensive document here. So that is one way to actually do it. Another way is to actually use a UI. If you don't want to do it this Linux way, then there is a easy way to do it, that you have to simply use a browser. Because my Raspberry Pi doesn't have a browser, so I can't do that. I can do that once you have a browser. You can simply use this _admin. Let me also use my browser here. So what I would do here, Raspberry Pi local 8080, and then /_admin. My bad, it's the wrong one, I think. Let's go ahead and I can do the same thing, get mappings. Yeah, this is the one. Admin mappings, it should work actually. Okay, I'm not sure how to access this localhost. I think there is a way to access it. I'm not sure if, okay, I think I stopped it, that's why it's not working. So let me start again. Yeah, so if I go ahead now and use this, it should work. Yep, it is working. And if I remove this mapping, okay, cool. So this is working, and there was a way, I'm not sure how do I actually do that. There was an option that we can also, let me check. Okay, so I'm not sure how do I actually access that admin panel. There was a way to do it. Let's go ahead and, all right, So that can only be done as I can see here, that can only be done if you actually sign up for a account. You have to have a cloud account, and then we have UI to actually do this. But now without that, we can only use this kind of APIs. So that's well and good. Alright, so coming back here, our WireMock is up and running, and we can see we can always use this kind of mocking API. So this is a simple use case. We can mock this kind of stuff. We can learn from here, and their official website. There are a lot of possibilities available. We can have very good use cases. One important use case that I just wanted to share is that template, right? So if I go here and then go to docs, they have something called template, so we don't have to build our own JSON. Okay, yeah, so on the left side, if you see template library, so this kind of template that we can do here, template library site, and here these are a lot of actually templates available. We can use that templates to actually build any kind of dummy, so we don't have to prepare our own. You can always prepare your own, it is time consuming, but if you already have to have some template that is already available, we can use this kind of stuff. Okay, so basically we can use, let's say, the medium, and we can use this, download this JSON. So let me copy this and go to Raspberry Pi and maybe stop it and go to mappings, and I would like to download that JSON. So how do I download it? At wget and do this. So basically it should download it, and do I ls, and if you see here, there is a stub, right, already available, medium. Okay, I already had a dummy, and then I just downloaded the medium stub, so I don't have to write this. So if I go ahead and do a cat medium, you can see already they have available written lots of APIs. We can simply use this API. Okay, now let me go ahead and start server again. I have to go back. Now once we keep that JSON file under mapping folder, it will automatically pick that up, so we don't have to worry about it. Now let's go ahead. If you see here, if I earlier it was returning only this mapping, now it will return me more mappings. So if you see here, this is done. After this, I have this medium APIs, right? So let's pick up something from there. So here I can use this. This is a get request, and I can use this article instead of this. I can simply use this article, right? So if you see content, and there is some JSON content, and this is a JSON type. So there are lots of API that actually we can use from them, and this is the simple stuff. So you can go ahead and pick up anything from the list here. So that is one of the case that you can simply do it. So you can use this API to do any kind of testing. You can do your test automation based on this, and you can have this server up and running using this kind of Raspberry Pi. So this is one of the use case. So that is about it for today. I'll try to create more videos specifically on Raspberry Pi, what other things that we can do. One more thing, just I wanted to forget to actually do this. With this, I can also access the HTML file. So if you see this, I tried to access the HTML file, which was underscore files. I kept a static file, right? So we can also mock that kind of HTML files things also. So this is also possible. We can host our own applications on Raspberry Pi. There are a lot of stuff to do. Maybe I'll create more videos on different other kind of use cases, but for now I just wanted to focus on the mocking part, and how can we create a mocking server on our own and have it up and running 24/7 using Raspberry Pi. So that is all. Thank you.